What's up, chat? I'm gonna get started here in just a minute. Alrighty. Whoops. Didn't mean to show that. Sorry, just checking my Instagram before we get things going here. How are you guys doing this fine Sunday afternoon? I apologize for the late start today. I forgot that I had to turn in my apartment keys and all that stuff since I moved out. Completely forgot about it. And unfortunately, that's like an hour away. So, yeah, I had to go do that. And unfortunately, they didn't open until 1 o'clock, which meant that I wasn't going to make it back for the 2 o'clock start as usual. But I'm here and I'm ready to go. One sec, let me turn on my lights. Keep forgetting to do this. There we go. That probably looks a little bit better. If you guys enjoy the live streams, you enjoy the chats we're having every Sunday as I clean off my gigantic mouse pad here. If you'd be so kind, like the video, subscribe to the channel, greatly appreciated. That's like the #1 way that you guys can support the channel and let me know that you guys enjoy what I'm doing. So yeah, subscribe, like the video, and some of you guys have been leaving comments on the YouTube videos as well. Always greatly appreciated. I read those whenever you guys send them. So I get notifications directly to my email inbox whenever you guys do that. So I do read them. But if there's nothing worth really responding to, or if I don't really have anything to add to it, then I might not respond to you. But yeah, I do read them. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, one thing I wanted to share with you guys, since it's kind of a big milestone for me, I guess you could say, and kind of relates to what I want to talk about today. If you guys have seen the title of this live stream, Minority Representation in Media, something I've seen talked about quite a bit, something I have pretty strong opinions on. So I figured my week and that topic kind of tie nicely together. So, first things first, wanted to just show you guys this. I have officially published, self-published, because self-publishing is the future. I've officially self-published my second book. But unlike the first book that I published, which was the Angular tutorial teaching people how to write code and develop front-end applications using Angular, this one's a little bit different. This one's me kind of transitioning into a new chapter in my life. It is called Bodyweight Basics, Fundamental Exercises and Equipment for Home Workouts. One little pet peeve I have about Gumroad is, as you can see, this is nicely like formatted. It fits into your browser nice. But then the cover images are freaking gigantic. I don't know why they do this. So let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see it. See, like this seems a little bit better, maybe even that. But then you go down here and it's really small. But yeah, this is a cover, and then a picture of me, and then also a picture of me from when I was a wee little boy in high school. And now I've grown up into the man that I am today, right? But yeah, if you guys are looking to get in shape, if you guys are already working out, want to try something new, or if you've never worked out and you want to start working out, you can download my book. It is 100% free of charge. Let me make sure. Whoops. It's got all this Google Analytics stuff on the end, I think. No. There we go. Oh my God. Is this my first time using a computer? I don't want all this extra crap for you guys when I share it in chat. There we go. Let me share this in chat for you. So yeah, like I said, that video or that book is 100% free of charge. So you can download it for free and start looking at it today. And that is, you know, a lot of the home workout stuff that I was doing during the COVID pandemic, whenever all of the gyms shut down. Basically everything shut down, and I was in a weird spot because I was going to the gym pretty regularly, and I like going to the gym. I like using a lot of the equipment that they have there. But when they were shut down and we really had no idea how long that was going to last, I had to get a little creative. So I had to figure out how to utilize a lot of the home equipment that I already had, and then some of the stuff that I bought over time. So all of that is in this book, free of charge for you guys. Download it if you'd be so kind. And if you enjoy it, please leave me a rating. As you can tell, I already got 3 5-star ratings. I'm very proud of this book. And this is one of many more to come. So get ready. This isn't the end. I'm already starting to think through some of my next books. All right, so now to move on to the topic that I said kind of tied nicely into this, that I think is worth discussing in more detail, and that is representation in media, specifically minority representation in media. This is something that a lot of people talk about. You'll hear this whenever those award shows come about, the Academy, the Grammy. I know that's like music, but you know, all those award shows. And they'll always talk about minority representation in media. There's not enough minorities. You'll see people in tech talk about this, about how, you know, diversity is lacking in general, but then you'll have these, what do you call them? Like diversity days, representation days, where people say, retweet all of your minority creators. There aren't enough blank authors. There aren't enough blank actors. Blank being whatever minority or protected class that is closest to your heart. And the reason this frustrates me, the reason why I get really irritated by this, is because of the wonderful world that we live in today. The wonderful world that we live in today being that we live in a world of democratizing technologies. We live in a world where there are fewer and fewer gatekeepers. We live in a world where you no longer have to ask for people's permission to do the things that you want to do, right? See, right now, I'm broadcasting live on YouTube. This is pretty crazy that this is possible. Just the fact that I can do it. The fact that some people do it and they have like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of viewers, that is mind-blowing. But just the simple fact that you can do it is insane. You can create a YouTube channel. You can create a Twitch channel. You can create a Facebook account. You do a little bit of setup in OBS or Streamlabs or whatever service you want to use. And as long as you have a microphone, a webcam, if you really want to get fancy, you could pretty much get started broadcasting live within a day. That was unheard of for the longest time. It sounds crazy to say, but even when I was growing up, like in the 90s, this wasn't possible. You couldn't do this. If you're somebody like me and you're like, I want to just rant about a bunch of random topics every Sunday afternoon, and whoever wants to watch can come and watch, that was largely impossible. I mean, how exactly would you go about doing that? The quickest way, maybe, would be convincing your local radio station to allow you to do that. But think about that. That is such a limited amount of time. They probably already had every hour of the day booked that they were broadcasting on the airwaves. So you would have to go to a radio station and say, hey, I think I'm interesting enough. I think you should give me an hour of the day, like a Rush Limbaugh or a Howard Stern, and just let me talk. But they're taking a huge risk in giving you that hour time slot. And also, there are only so many hours in the day. So if 50 people show up, let's assume all 24 hours were up for grabs. If 50 people show up, they can't even give half of those people an hour. You could say, well, they could cut it down to 30 minutes and then everybody, you get the point, right? There's only so much time in the day, and if there was a lot of demand for it, eventually they have to pick and choose who gets that time. Not today. Today, if you feel like doing it, if you feel like you have something worthwhile to say, you can invest in some equipment. You don't really need that much, and you can get going. Honestly, if you just have a phone, you can start doing it. I think YouTube has some restrictions on that, but still, again, you get my point. You can just broadcast live from your phone. And even if you can't broadcast live, you can still record a video from your phone, upload directly from your phone. You don't even need a microphone. Everything is built into your phone, and you can start publishing videos tomorrow. The same goes with publishing books. For the longest time, if you wanted to write a book, you had to get permission from a publisher. You had to convince them that you had something worth writing. And then even if you did that, you had this goofy model where, they'll give you an advance. Let's say it's, for a nice round number, $10,000. They say, we're going to give you $10,000 to write this book. But then you're only getting like 10% of every book that you sell. And that's only 10% of every book that you sell once they make that initial $10,000 back. So you might not know this, but in book publishing, if you're trying to get a book deal, most books never make that advance back. They kind of play the whole venture capital game, right? Where venture capitalists will invest in 20 companies. They expect to lose money on most of those, but they're just hoping that one of them is TikTok. One of them is Dropbox. One of them is Twitch. They're hoping that one of those is a winner and outweighs all of the other companies that they invested in. Books are the same way. They're hoping that for every 50 book deals that they give and every 50 advancement deals that they give, that one of them is Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week, because that one book makes up for the other 49 that never made anything. Or they made a little bit, but they never made back the advance. But now we live in a world where you don't have to go to Penguin Publishing. You don't have to go to any of these book publishers and say, hey, I have an idea. I promise you it's going to sell so many. They look at you. They're like, you're a nobody. What is your degree in? I don't have a degree. Where have you taught? I've never taught anywhere. How many books have you written before? I've never written a book. They don't want to give you that deal. In the past, that was it. You were done. You either believed in yourself so much that you kept pursuing that goal, you kept pursuing that dream, or there might have been some other avenues. Maybe you could write a segment of your book in a newspaper. They would publish it. If they got enough people writing an actual letter in and saying, I want to hear more from that Adam Morgan guy, then they would publish the next part. But again, you need somebody's permission. In today's world, you can write your book, as I've done here. You go to Gumroad, you upload a PDF, you hit publish, and now anybody can download it. That's all you had to do. Make an account, which you need an email address. But after that, you're pretty much good to go. That is an amazing world to live in. And there are people, let me just pull this up. I don't want to show my email to you guys, but let me just find some of these revenue numbers. What's new? Nope. Gumroad. Here we go. Congratulations to our Gumroad creators. This is an actual email from Gumroad. 13,000 creators earned something this week. 10,000 creators earned more than $10. 3,600 creators earned more than $100. 636 creators earned more than $1,000. 38 creators earned more than $10,000. And one creator earned more than $100,000 this week. That was September 12th. So exactly 1 week ago. 1 week ago, somebody on Gumroad in a permissionless technology that anybody can upload products to, somebody made $100,000 in 1 week. If that person tried to go through traditional avenues to get that published, let's say even if they could, one, they weren't making as much money, and two, they did a lot less work because they would have had to sell somebody or a group of people that their product was worthwhile. Now, they just do it. And then back in the day, you would have to advertise, you would have to go on like HGTV, you would have to have some infomercial slot, 10 o'clock, all the money, time involved in doing all that bullshit. Now you just send out an email blast to your email newsletter list, or you post about it on Twitter, or you post about it on Facebook, Instagram. This is the world that we live in. So whenever people are talking about we need more minority representation in media, I have very little sympathy for it because they're viewing the problem completely incorrectly. They're looking at it with a boomer mentality. They're looking at the problem and saying, hey, Hollywood, give minorities more opportunities. They're looking at book publishers and they're saying, publish more Black authors. They're looking at, TV shows. They're like, hey, hire more women into these spots. Rather than recognizing the world that we live in, circumventing that entire process and just doing it yourself. And the reason I kind of came to this conclusion is because of this amazing video that I saw during the Apple event this past week. They showed off this cinematic mode of the new iPhone. Now, somebody out there is going to be like, Android's had this for over 3 years. Don't care. That's not the point. Just watch this. This is shot on an iPhone. The feature here that they're showing off, I forget what they call it. I mean, they call it cinematic mode, but there's actually like some cinematography term for it. It's what allows you to, like, if you were shooting me right now, I would be in focus, but then the drum set behind me would be out of focus. And then you can swap them so that the drum set's in focus and then I'm not in focus. This is now in the iPhone. Like, anybody who goes and buys the new iPhone has this built into their phone. Watch this. This is crazy. that thing right there, and then right here. See, now he's not in focus. Now he is. I'll save you the whole video. You get the point. This, just like live streaming, is accessible to anybody. I mean, I get it. The iPhone's expensive. But when I go out in public and everybody fucking has one, I'm like, okay, really? Are we going to use a privilege argument here? Everybody has access to this now. So whenever I hear people, ripping into the latest Tom Cruise movie and they're like, oh, look, a bunch of white actors. Where are the minority actors? Where is the Asian male lead? Where is the black female lead? All this bullshit. I'm like, why are you continuing to wait for permission? Also, why do you even want to work with them? If you're that convinced that they're racist and that they're like intentionally not hiring an Asian male for the lead role, why do you even want to work with them? If the government came in and said, hey, you have to hire an Asian male lead, are you suddenly like, thank you, now I get to work with all those racist people making a movie? Like, it doesn't make sense. But this is the world that we live in now. This is what you can do. You can avoid this entire process. If you think Hollywood is racist, if you think a black female lead in an action movie is going to be a blockbuster hit, if you think an Asian male lead in a movie is going to be a blockbuster hit, you can now make that movie yourself. You don't have to wait for Hollywood's permission. You can buy an iPhone. Find your friend who wants to write screenplays. Find your other friend who wants to be an editor. Find your other friend who wants to be an actor. It's going to turn out to be a lot of work, but you can now do this yourself. And the bar for most people isn't that high. I mean, if you look at Twitch streams, you look at YouTube live streams, people aren't like, hey, this doesn't look like, what's that fucking show? Kelly and... It used to be Regis and Kelly, whoever it is now. They're not going to be like, this doesn't look like a CBS set. Turn it off. If it's interesting, if it's cool, people are willing to forgive production value if it's actually that good. And the production value isn't even going to be that bad if you know what you're doing, because this new iPhone allows you to do quite a bit. It's like all of these photographers that'll post pictures on Instagram and they intentionally choose to use an iPhone over the Nikon DSLR X5000 to show you what's possible. Because people will want to say, like, oh, the reason why I don't have good looking photos is because I don't have a $15,000 camera. See, you guys have that. Your parents bought you that camera. I don't have that. I have an iPhone. So they'll take pictures with an iPhone and even tag it as such, like shot with iPhone, or they'll be like, this is what I made using an iPhone. Or some of these photographers, I actually bought a photography course on Udemy. This guy's done photos for like National Geographic, like all these big publications that most people would know. And he did an entire course on how to do photography with an iPhone. And every picture he showed you was shot and edited on an iPhone. If you looked at the pictures, you'd be like, there's no fucking way. You'd be like, my pictures don't look like that. But it turns out he's just more skilled than you are, and he's better at editing than you are, and he's better at composition and framing and lighting and using all the guidelines in nature to create a wonderful picture. So whenever people are having these conversations about, we need more representation in media, I'm like, you're looking at this from the complete wrong point of view. This is such a boomer mindset. It's why boomer isn't an age, it's a mentality. And these people have boomer mentality. But this is kind of indicative of what the real issue is, right? They don't want to do all the work to get to that point. Hollywood's already in place. All the talent around the movie is already in place. They're like, no, just take that guy out, take Tom Cruise out, and put me in there. Keep everything else the same. Keep the entire racist staff in place. Just put me in there. Rather than going the new age route. The new age route of doing it all yourself. Right? There are people that are making, like, San Holo, EDM artist. I'm pretty sure he started just making shit on his MacBook. Right? There are some people that make insane music on a MacBook. The same MacBook that I have. I could download the music software. I'm going to make some garbage. They make great stuff. If you want to see representation, start making stuff. You're like, there aren't enough children's books targeted towards black kids. May true, may not be true, doesn't matter. If it's that big of a deal, if you care that much, make the book. If there aren't enough comedy sketches done, if you're like SNL, still too white, not a fan of SNL, still too white, make your own comedy sketches, put them on YouTube. You have all of the tools available to you. All you have to do is do it. But that's the hard part. Actually sitting down and doing the damn thing. I've had to do it twice now. That's my little bit of word of encouragement here. Let's say you are watching this and you're like, dude, I do want to publish my own book. I do want to make YouTube videos. I'm not going to sit here and talk like I'm some badass YouTuber because I'm not. But it is easier to make YouTube videos after you've done a bunch. Even though mine haven't gotten insane views, they're easier to make now than they were when I first started. There are certain parts of it that are easier for me to do now than they were when I first started. Talking on camera is a lot easier to do now. Making some of the graphics, the whole workflow of making a YouTube video is much easier than it used to be. Writing a book this time around was much easier. Not only because I kind of knew the whole flow, I knew some of the software used to create PDFs, but I've actually written before. The simple act of sitting down when I wrote my first book, 7 months, I wrote every single day. Some days more than others, but for 7 months straight, I sat down in front of my laptop and wrote about programming. When I had to write this book, this Bodyweight Basics book, dude, it was like a walk in the park. I've done 500 pages. This was like 65 pages. This just poured out of me because I've written a 500-page book, and that was very difficult material. This was kind of difficult as well. My girlfriend was laughing at me because I'm like trying to explain how to do certain exercises, and I'm like doing this in front of her. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? But writing about programming was really hard, mentally taxing. There were some days where I just felt drained. I couldn't even think at the end of it. Now when I have to write, I've been through that 7-month process. Sitting down to write 2 weeks is like, okay, that's cool. That's a sprint. I've done it before. I can do this. I've already published once. I know I could do it again. I knew I could do it again. If I didn't do this book, I knew it was just because I got lazy. That's really all it came down to. And I think that's what a lot of this representation and media stuff comes down to. People have so much free time on their hands. You might start with just doing like Instagram Reels, TikToks, Just do one of those little skits. And then when one really pops off, start thinking, okay, how can I take this, blow it up into like a 5-minute clip, publish that on YouTube? And then you can pursue all of the activist things you want to pursue. You want disabled people in there, go for it. You want blind people in there, go for it. You want people who are deaf, go for it. Minority lead, go for it. Nobody's going to tell you can't do it. And if anything, you're going to have an easier time because you can market it as such. I hear this spring. I don't know if you guys hear it in the mic or not, but you can market it as such. And who do you think YouTube's going to promote on their front page more? A bunch of white college frat dudes who create the next like college humor skit, or a bunch of underrepresented groups that are trying to create the minority version of the Avengers? Probably the minority version of the Avengers, right? So everything is playing to your favor. All you have to do is do it. That's really what it comes down to. And lack of tools is no longer an excuse. This is the time. We live in the greatest time ever. This is kind of the subject of the YouTube video I'm going to make this week. But look back at like the printing press revolution. The whole reason it was a revolution, and it wasn't even that much of a revolution when you compare it to like self-publishing today, but it was that you didn't need some fucking monk to be like hunched over at a table, like writing out every word. And then once he was done, it was like, all right, that's one copy of the book. Now we need 50 more. And then he has to redo the same book 49 more times, right? They could just print it on demand, kind of, but they could just print a bunch of them. And then you'd have a bunch of people from Spain like travel to India, and they could trade those books. And then they would get saffron in exchange. And they were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they would take some books on engineering over to Japan. Japan would be like, hey, you heard about this thing called matcha? What the fuck? And then they come back home to Spain. They're like, look at this crazy green powder. Japan's like, look at this thing called a well. Both sides benefit. And that was just from the printing press. Again, that was like marginal in terms of today when it comes to a revolution. The revolution is actually today. That's what's crazy. You only see things as a revolution years after the fact, because the change is actually pretty small. When you look back in history, it's not like it was some gigantic change. I mean, obviously it led to gigantic changes, but the difference between a monk sitting down and writing whatever you wanted him to write and their printing press was much better, but it still wasn't great. But it led to so many new things, and it completely changed the world. That's what's happening right now, but everybody's kind of discounting it. Self-publishing is going to change the world. I'm calling it right now. Everybody just kind of looks at it as like, okay, anybody can go on Amazon, upload a PDF, and call themselves an author. It's going to change the world. It's going to change education. It's going to change how people make money. It's going to change the book publishing industry. It's going to change everything because it's democratizing who has access to this. No longer do you need the permission of these book publishers to write what you want to write. And they're going to get pissed off because it's kind of going to be like the whole Jordan Peterson thing. Even though I think Jordan Peterson was published, I'm pretty sure 12 Rules for Life was published by a book publisher. But the point being that Jordan Peterson's book was like the best-selling book. And the New York Times bestseller list, they didn't put him on it because he was like a Nazi or a right-winger or alt-right adjacent, right? So even though he was the best-selling author, he wasn't on the New York Times bestselling list. That's what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, if not sooner. You're going to go to the New York Times bestseller list. They're going to have 10 books, and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, maybe I've heard of them, but they're not the best-selling books. Because the best-selling book might be Tim Ferriss, but he's no longer going through book publishers. He's now self-publishing because he's like, wait, I have 10 million followers. Why would I go through a book publisher, make 30% on a book, when I can self-publish and make 90% on a book? Or negotiate with Gumroad even further and be like, hey, dude, I'm kind of a big deal. How about you give me 95%? To where he's basically profiting on every sale like 100%. And the book publishers are going to be pissed. Big media is going to get pissed. And they're going to say, let's just pretend like they don't exist. So everybody that you know in life is going to be talking about Tim Ferriss's new book. Let's say it's like the crypto work from home revolution. That's Tim Ferriss's book in 2023, The Crypto Work from Home Revolution. Everybody knows talking about it. You go to Thanksgiving, everybody's talking about it. You go to your local coffee shop, everybody's talking about it. But then you go to the New York Times bestseller list, and the number one best-selling book is like Don Lemon's Take on America. You're like, Don Lemon? What the fuck? Nobody's reading this shit. Don Lemon, really? He's the number one best-selling book in America? Nobody I know is talking about this book. Everybody's talking about Tim Ferriss's new self-published book and how he's taking his career in a completely new direction. But the New York Times is going to try and convince you Don Lemon is number one on the best-selling list, and he's not. They're just going to lie. They're going to try and pretend like self-publishing doesn't exist. That's where we're headed. I'm clipping this out for future reference. I promise you this is going to happen. Name like another person. Gary Vee. Gary Vee will do this, right? He'll write a book about self-publishing. Self-publishing, his first book about self-publishing. The Self-Publishing Revolution. Get in on it now before it's too late. He's going to talk about hustle and grind. That should be your first side income project, your first side hustle. Self-publish your own book. Even if nobody buys it, at least you did it. It'll sell 50 million copies. Nowhere to be found on the New York Times bestseller list. Because they're too busy promoting Don Lemon. Or AOC's Tax the Rich, Eat the Rich, right? That sells 5 copies. Even AOC's fans won't buy it. But they're going to tell you everybody's reading AOC's latest book when nobody you know is talking about it. But everybody you know is talking about Gary Vee's book. That's the future. That's what's coming. We got a little taste of it. A little taste of it with Jordan Peterson. They just pretended like he wasn't there. We all knew he was there. He was on every politics talk show in Australia, the UK, US. He was on Joe Rogan, Jocko's podcast, fucking everywhere. You couldn't avoid the guy. Lobsters were everywhere. New York Times bestseller list. Nope. Nothing. Oh, Michelle Obama released a book. Did you know? Who knew? Who knew? They think we're idiots. They think we don't see this shit. They really think we're just like, wow, I guess I should buy Michelle Obama's latest book. You don't think we know what's going on here? It's so transparent. God, this shit is so irritating. Like I said, that's the future. That's where we're headed. It's sad, but it's true. And one last thing to give you guys, don't discount self publishing. Like I said, it's the revolution. It's the revolution in writing, it's the revolution in education. Self publishing in any other type of self publishing. It doesn't have to be in book form, it can be in audio form, you know? It can be somebody like Dan Carlin who teaches people about history. He doesn't teach in a history class, as far as I know, but he has people interested in history. He takes one battle of one war. Maybe he'll even take one day of one battle of one war. And he stretches that shit out into like a 14-hour podcast. And people voluntarily listen to this, right? People pay thousands of dollars to go to school and take history class, and they do everything they can to avoid that class. Once they graduate, or once they never even went to college, but they just hear a guy like Dan Carlin on Joe Rogan, they voluntarily subject themselves to 14 hours worth of, the murder of Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, one moment of World War I. That's insane. That's what I mean by self-publishing. I know I went on a big rant about books, but I just mean self-publishing in any form. It can be audio, podcast, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. That's the revolution, and it's here to stay. So don't discount it. And that was the point I was kind of trying to make. Like, just because you hear somebody self-publishes a book, don't be like, oh, it's so dumb. Ooh, self-publishing. Because you consume other self-published content, other self-published media. You just don't really think about it in that way because it's not really, that term isn't tied to it. Nobody says like self-published videos. They just call it YouTube. Nobody says self-published radio. We call it podcasts. But books, there's books, official books, and then there's self-published books, and people kind of just like poo-poo on that. Which I get it. There's a lot of trash on Amazon, a lot of fan fiction, furry Hogwarts, shit like that. Costs like 50 cents. I get it. There's some trash out there, man, but one day, before you know it, you're going to be reading a book and you won't even know it's self-published. Like The Martian. I didn't know The Martian was self-published. That was made into a movie. It's not something people bring up all the time. Let me double check that. I'm like 99% sure that was self-published. The Martian, Andy Weir. Published. Yes, self-published in 2011. And then in February 2014, it was picked up by Crown Publishing Group. And that has sold. Let's see how many copies this has sold. Copies. Ow. That was loud. 35,000 copies in 3 months. I mean, that's probably sold like so many at this point. Okay, taking too long. But yeah, you guys have probably seen the movie or, read the book. But that was self-published. Had no idea. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen the movie, highly recommend it. It's a great movie. And if you want a really good book to read, his other book that he wrote, which is, let me find it, Project Hail Mary. Fantastic book. This is probably one of my favorite sci-fi books ever. Really, really good book. Definitely recommend checking this out. And then they're actually making it into a film. Yeah, the film rights have been purchased by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and actor Ryan Gosling. Plans to star as Grace in the film adaptation. The main character. Where's your Asian male lead? But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that rant today. Like I said, this was a topic that I have very strong feelings about, which is why I was able to turn a 10-minute segment that I thought it was going to be into like 30 minutes. So yeah, there's my thoughts on minority representation in media and just the future of media publishing in general. So, like I mentioned, I will probably clip this into a more digestible, smaller clip and release it on YouTube. And also later this week, I am going to be filming and publishing a video on the human learning revolution. That's all I'll give you for now. But basically, it relates to what I believe is the future of human potential when it comes to human learning, Neuralink, and yeah, basically, shit's about to get weird. Really weird. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the live stream, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That is the greatest way that you can support this channel. It means a lot to me. So yeah, if you liked it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You guys are awesome. Let me answer one quick question real quick from Fried Rice. What do you think about Hollywood usually replacing Asian characters with white actors? I don't really care, honestly. If you want to know my thoughts on this, watch the previous 20 minutes that I just addressed. I just addressed that, really. But yeah, I mean, I really don't care. As long as the movie's good, I'm not too picky about the race of the people in those roles. Unless it was done in a very blatant, intentionally racist, demeaning way, but I don't think it is. And even some stuff that was sticking true to the story, I believe Ghost in the Shell, people were bitching about that, but that was a bunch of nonsense. So I tend to not really care about that kind of stuff. As long as the movies are good, they're good. And that's all I care about. So yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will be back next Sunday, September 26th. And again, subscribe to the channel if you want to see the video that I'm releasing later this week. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you later.